This podcast contains references to G-strings, genitalia, and other secrets kept in the Queensland State Archives, which some people might disagree with, but that's okay.
Rumour is busy whispering horrid stories of a nude club which is said to be flourishing in Brisbane. And, say the whispers, they don't even go in the sun, my dear. They take off all their clothes and dance to a gramophone. It seems a dreary way of spending these gorgeous moonlight nights.
Welcome to Queensland Uncovered, a fortnightly podcast where we explore the best-kept secrets of the Queensland State Archives. I'm Josh.
And I'm Judy, and in this episode we are getting our kit off and exploring what it's like to be a nudist or a naturist in Queensland, and why everything seems to be better when you're in your birthday suit and nothing else for an afternoon.
Our intro this week came from the Sydney Bulletin, dated May 9th, 1934. I must say, dancing naked to a gramophone isn't the first thing I picture when I think of nudists. I suppose I think more of nude beaches and going out to get tanned.
Well, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, both the word nudist and naturist mean someone who engages in the activity of going naked because they believe that it is good and healthy to be wearing no clothes. The naturist movement started in Europe in the 1920s, and it didn't take long before it reached Queensland in the mid-1930s, as we heard before from the Sydney Bulletin.
I'm really not surprised given the tropical climate of Queensland.
You might be surprised there. To find out more about naturism in Queensland in the 1930s, I talked to Joanne Seckham, Senior Reference Archivist at the Queensland State Archives, and it turns out that naturism isn't all about the heat, according to the records held at the archives.
Here at Queensland State Archives, we want to inspire all Queenslanders to discover the stories contained in our records. With a winter daily average maximum of 17 degrees, Toowoomba seems an unlikely place for the practice of nude sunbathing. However, Queensland police records suggest otherwise. A piece published in September 1937 in a tabloid newspaper of the day prompted police investigations into a naturist club. The official police line of the Toowoomba Police became that the existence of a naturist club at or near Toowoomba was Tommy rot. More broadly, on file here, general correspondence about public and private morality reflects some of the quaint attitudes of Queensland society at the time.
That is too much for me. Being from the far north, I'm already cold enough in the wintertime with multiple layers on. I would freeze. What Joanne said about the attitudes of Queenslanders is interesting, and I suppose given the fact that the media is referring to them as a nude cult, means there was a fair amount of social pushback. Where did they stand legally?
Well, in Queensland, the Summary Offences Act of 2005, which is currently in force, makes it a criminal offence for anyone to willfully expose their genitals in a public place, unless that person has a reasonable excuse. There was a similar criminal offence in the Vagrants, Gaming and Other Offences Act of 1931, which remained in force until March 2005. What this means is that it has been illegal since 1931, and it's still illegal for anyone to practice naturism in a public place in Queensland, if doing so exposes their genitals to the view of others.
In other states across Australia, there are locations that are designated nudist beaches, like Lady Bay Beach in New South Wales, which has been a legal nudist beach since 1996. But Queensland doesn't seem to have any of these sites. This week, I had a chat with Natasha Ralphs and Dan Adamick from Young Nudists Australia, and here are their thoughts on the matter.
It sucks because it does hinder us going to beaches. There is an unofficial nude beach at Alexandra Bay, which we do go to. Sometimes there's been reports of people being fined by police and what have you. But the alternative for us is resorts. A lot of them are private, some are public. They offer basically the same as a beach does. Some of them are more rural, some are private, like I said, so they're like within a property, personal property where there's a pool and, you know, a whole sort of setup where you can hang out with people like yourself. We understand why there are the laws and the protection of others, but we also feel that there is a market for a clothing optional beach in particular, especially given the climate in Queensland, the tourism aspect. European tourists totally would be up for it. And I think it's a lost market.
Yeah, definitely. The laws that we have at the moment are just, I don't know, I was reflecting the other day, it just seems so loose when it comes to being offended by, nudity, and the prosecution for being convicted for simply just being at a beach and being nude, when you're clearly not going about your way, going out there and actually showing your genitalia to people. You're actually on a beach by yourself in your own company, not bothering anybody, and but someone can get that one somebody could just simply walk by. Police officers get contacted, they're down there, and you're, next thing you're facing a judge at the local magistrate's court, pleading your life, trying to sort of protect your job.
However, it seems that the risk of prosecution for willful exposure is much greater for men than for women. An article by legal academic Craig Burgess, published in the Alternative Law Journal in 2016, has revealed that while there have been many publicly recorded instances of men being prosecuted for willful exposure in Queensland, there has not been a single publicly recorded case of women being prosecuted for the same offence. What's really interesting is that in the same article, the Queensland president of the Australian Sex Party, Mark McGovern, is quoted as saying that police are breaching anti-discrimination legislation by arresting men for willful exposure because only male genitalia hangs out.
The impression I got was that the risks of prosecution are heavily outweighed by the benefits. From my talk with Dan and Natasha, what I understood was that the movement is all about freedom and wellness. That freedom to express your own body and self by finding that confidence to actually put yourself out there and accept your flaws and be you. Another of the pieces from the archives I found when I was researching for this week's topic is an early bulletin proposing a nudist club in Brisbane. Part of the selling point for the club was that the sunlight intake is good for the body, and what a better way to absorb it than across the whole body. I showed this advertisement to Natasha and Dan.
There is nothing greater than being out in the open, having that nice warm sun on your skin. It just warms your soul. It's great.
Yeah, it gives you an energy. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird to sort of feel that. It's weird we couldn't feel that with clothes on.
Even if you're at a beach with a bikini, and a lot of bikinis are barely there anyway, but just to have that freedom of nothing is brilliant.
I agree.
Now, we had some other pieces in the archive about bikinis.
Well, the G-string for sure. There was clearly a scandal in September 1946 because both the Courier Mail and the Sunday Mail published articles about the ban of certain types of swimwear at beaches on the Gold Coast. The Courier Mail even mentions that local council had designated beach inspectors that would police what beachgoers were wearing, especially for women.
When I was speaking to Natasha, the topic of policing women's bodies did come up, and this is what she had to say regarding how the law restricts what women wear.
Women are told what to do all the time. It's either you've worn too much, you're not wearing enough, nothing is right. So, and I don't think a G-string is lewd. It's not exposing anything but something that everybody has. It's just ridiculous. It's controlling. Through time and history, women were always told that you have to be, neck to knee swimwear, and then it gradually creeped up. So a G-string is really just the next step. Hopefully it gets to nothing.
So, Josh, do you think you would ever go nude at a beach or at a resort?
Maybe. I mean, the topic has piqued my interest now that I've researched it, I've got to say. Maybe I'll have to give it a go should we ever legalise it in Queensland. And not a bad question for our listeners. Is it something that you would ever want to try? Should there be legalised zones in Queensland? Hit us up on Facebook or Twitter and let us know what you think of naturism, or if you have any great stories to tell.
We'd like to thank our guests for this episode, Joanne, Natasha and Dan, for being such great voices for the archives and for today's Queenslanders. If you want to do a little digging yourself and see what other dirty little secrets are waiting to be found, why don't you visit the Queensland State Archives blog, Stories from the Archives, link in the description for this episode, or visit them in person at Runcorn, open weekdays from 9 a.m. until 4:30.
Until next time, this has been Josh and Judy, and you've been listening to Queensland Uncovered.